Chapter I Acts, Bailments of Pledges, 172, Pledge, Pawnee and Pawnee defined, 173, Pawnee's right of retainer, 174, Pawnee not to retain for debt or promise other than that for which goods pledged, presumption in case of subsequent advances, 175, Pawnee's right as to extraordinary expenses incurred, 176, Pawnee's right where pawnee makes default, 177, defaulting pawnee's right to redeem, 178, pledge by mercantile agent, 178a, pledge by person in possession under voidable contract, 179, pledge where pawnee has only a limited interest, suits by bailees or bailors against wrongdoers, 180, suit by bailor or bailee against wrongdoer, 181, apportionment of relief or compensation obtained by such suits, Section 172, Pledge, Pawnee and Pawnee defined. The bailment of goods as security for payment of a debt or performance of a promise is called pledge. The bailor is in this case called the pawnee. The bailee is called the pawnee. Section 173, Pawnee's right of retainer. The pawnee may retain the goods pledged, not only for payment of the debt or the performance of the promise, but for the interest of the debt, and all necessary expenses incurred by him in respect of the possession or for the preservation of the goods pledged. Section 174, Pawnee not to retain for debt or promise other than that for which goods pledged. The pawnee shall not, in the absence of a contract to that effect, retain the goods pledged for any debt or promise other than the debt or promise for which they are pledged, but such contract, in the absence of anything to the contrary, shall be presumed in regard to subsequent advances made by the pawnee. Section 175, Pawnee's right as to extraordinary expenses incurred. The pawnee is entitled to receive from the pawnee extraordinary expenses incurred by him for the preservation of the goods pledged. Section 176, Pawnee's right where pawnee makes default. If the pawnee makes default in payment of the debt, or performance, at the stipulated time of the promise, in respect of which the goods were pledged, the pawnee may bring a suit against the pawnee upon the debt or promise, and retain the goods pledge as a collateral security, or he may sell the thing pledged, on giving the pawnee reasonable notice of the sale. If the proceeds of such sale are less than the amount due in respect of the debt or promise, the pawnee is still liable to pay the balance. If the proceeds of the sale are greater than the amount so due, the pawnee shall pay over the surplus to the pawnee. Section 177, defaulting pawnee's right to redeem. If a time is stipulated for the payment of the debt, of performance of the promise, for which the pledge is made, and the pawnee makes default in payment of the debt or performance of the promise at the stipulated time, he may redeem the goods pledged at any subsequent time before the actual sale of them. 1. But he must, in that case, pay, in addition, any expenses which have arisen from his default. Section 178, Pledge by mercantile agent. 2. Where a mercantile agent is, with the consent of the owner, in possession of goods or the document of title to goods, any pledge made by him, when acting in the ordinary course of business of a mercantile agent, shall be as valid as if he were expressly authorized by the owner of the goods to make the same, provided that the pawnee acts in good faith and has not at the time of the pledge notice that the pawnee has not authority to pledge. Explanation. In this section, the expressions mercantile agent and documents of title shall have the meanings assigned to them in the Indian Sale of Goods Act, 1930, 3 of 1930. Section 178a, Pledge by person in possession under voidable contract. When the pawnee has obtained possession of the goods pledged by him under a contract voidable under Section 19 or Section 19a, but the contract has not been rescinded at the time of the pledge, the pawnee acquires a good title to the goods, provided he acts in good faith and without notice of the pawnee's defect of title. Section 179, Pledge where pawnee has only a limited interest. Where a person pledges goods in which he has only a limited interest, the pledge is valid to the extent of that interest. Section 180, Suit by bailor or bailee against wrongdoer. If a third person wrongfully deprives the bailee of the use or possession of the goods bailed, or does them any injury, the bailee is entitled to use such remedies as the owner might have used in the like case if no bailment had been made, and either the bailor or the bailee may bring a suit against a third person for such deprivation or injury. Section 181, Apportionment of relief or compensation obtained by such suits. Whatever is obtained by way of relief or compensation in any such suit shall, as between the bailor and the bailee, be dealt with according to their respective interests. 1. For limitation, see the Limitation Act, 1963, 36 of 1963, the second schedule. 2. S is 178 and 178A sub is by Act 4 of 1930, S2, for the original S. 178.